Remember that one.
Thank you. Now we got our applause. We can go home, basically.
First, let's have a drink and then go home.
Okay. So we are happy that after 11 years, she's back and ready to
She's
talk.
back.
Yes,
and she's
she has.
whack.
She has forgiven everything we did to her, Mrs. Rebecca Taylor.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad. Oh, I'm so glad to see you all. A lot of handsome guys here, and there's a couple pretty girls too. I see over here.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like a mandatory thing to wear a black T-shirt, isn't it?
it is.
Okay.
It is actually. You can read the writing better. Yes, we should get here one
I
print
know.
over there. You know, when you came over here in 2013, I remember that we were sitting there the first night, and we were wondering. You were coming over with your husband Mark, and we were talk about him, and we were wondering, oh, they're gonna be so mad when they come here because your whole trip was sort of a nightmare. I remember this, and you just came there, and we asked you, "Could we bring you something?" You were like, "No, it's okay. Maybe a cup of coffee."
I said that?
Yes, yes.
There's something
you
wrong with
did.
me then.
There was, if you remember, there was this moment when you were like not coming out of Canada because you're
Right, we were stuck. But you know, it was all good. We were excited to come. We were really excited to come. It was our first con of all the cons. Even I don't even know if they had them in America at that time. But we were invited, and I met Gunnar here, and I've recognized some of your faces, and it's really good to be back. But the trip was okay. It wasn't bad. We did get stuck in Canada, but
Do you remember what you told me? How you came out of this? You gotta help me out. I think it was because your visa were.
oh, it was Mark.
Well,
It was Mark. Something was wrong with Mark's passport, of course.
so. Yeah, and so Mark Taylor's passport was
So is that
invalid, and you had to renew it, and it was sure that you would not get
Make
your
it.
you get your next plane. You do not get, and then you told me that you were at these at the customer service, and somebody said, "Mark Taylor, where do I know that name?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, I was the man who invented He-Man." And this guy at the passport office, he was like, "Oh, that was you? Here you go."
Yeah, it's gotten us out of jail even.
So you were when we were talking, you said it happens to you a lot that you get recognized. That
So
with
much.
your name.
I was on a train from I don't know, it's somewhere in UK, and a man helped me with my luggage because you have to mind the gap in that, and he sat next to me, and I said, well, I looked to see if they're around 46 years old. I know. So I said, "Are you in your 40s, 45?" He said, "I am." And I said, "Do you know who He-Man is?" And he said, "Mark Taylor did it." And I was like shocked. And now we're pen pals, of course. Photographer in the UK.
So when if I may ask, since when do you know Mark?
Oh, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to graduate school at a college. I took a night class. It was an illustration class, and there was a guy sitting across from me, far, maybe as far as you are. Yeah, and he went like this to me. So it was always a big joke in our family. He went, and he had really long hair, and I said, "Oh my God, who's this hippie?" And I checked everything to make sure everything was like covered because he had such a look on his face. And then I said this, and he probably can't even draw. And then the first assignment was due, and he brought in his assignment, and I went, "Oh my gosh." So I had to,
Yes.
it was,
Yeah. And if this guy that you met this day, if this guy would have known that 40 years later, people in the UK will recognize him on a train.
isn't that weird?
Yes. What
He
would
didn't
he have
believe
said?
he didn't believe me, by the way. The passenger, he went, I said, "My husband did that." And he said, "No way," like this. And I said, "I have pictures." So I pulled out my phone, and because I try to post as many things as I can on Facebook and stuff, because Mark wanted that. He always said, "Give them the art. It doesn't. It's theirs." So so I had all the photos, and I showed the man the photos, and he said, "Oh my God!" And he was very excited.
Yeah. When we talk about Mark at art class, what if he would be sitting here? What would you say would be the first thing people would notice about him? Would they notice him at all, or would he be like a small, humble?
You know what? He was really nice. I mean, wives say that about their husbands, but I'm serious. He was even nicer than he appeared to be. He was that nice. He was great. And he was humble, and you would have noticed his hair because it was almost as long as mine, which is funny to think of now, but yeah. And then he was very, when it was a group design process, he was really very professional about his presentations, you know, and the ideas he had. They were always kind of quirky, as you can imagine, but they always had like such a nice feel to the drawings, you know. They inspired you. They made you want to see more. And he had these, but in his head and as a child.
Did he ever talk to you about what his inspirations were, where he got his ideas from,
Always, yes.
for example?
For example, let's see what we have here. Okay, Tila. With Tila, he said, Mattel's not going to like this, but I don't care. They don't want a female in the line, but I'm making a female anyway. And he said, and she's going to go, and she's going to be, woof, she's going to be good looking. And so what happened was so they didn't really want to do it, but they did it for him. And when child testing came around, all the little boys grabbed her first, you know? They said, mothers aren't going to like it. And Mark said, I don't care if mothers like it or not. The kids are going to like this. And they did. And they tried to steal her. Somebody put it in a jacket, you know? It's got the one-way mirror, and the kids were trying to steal all the prototypes. So he knew he had a hit. He came home that day and he said, I think I've got a hit. The kids tried to steal my toys.
Yeah. So I think when we see where the stories brought us today, where there's much more female representation, everything, I think he was right 40 years ago.
They did Shira after her.
Yes.
My friend Justine Dancer did Shira right after that because Barbie said, there's some money here. So they made Shira, which is a kind of a takeoff, you know? And it was quite a thing because I was doing a lot of work for the Barbie group, and they were frantically trying to outdo this one.
I remember a video of Mark in on a certain topic that doesn't matter now, but he was quite angry, and he said
I remember that interview. It was in my backyard.
yeah, he was like, I am you call me a barbarian, well then I am a barbarian.
Yeah, pretty much.
And how would you say that this fits to this humble?
You know, it's really interesting about that because he played football, but he was a nerd. And there was something charming about that, you know, because when I met him, you know, my father was an artist, so I was always around art. And Mark's parents didn't want him to draw at all. They forbid him to have anything but lined paper. So he learned to draw like this. And I always said, and then he met me, and then my father was an artist. So it was like a whole thing, like, you know, like they were out, but they didn't want him to be an artist. And I said, you need to thank them profusely for making you want it so badly, you know?
Yeah, of course. So I take that you come from very different backgrounds?
Very. Well, you know what, though? We were both born in Los Angeles. And there's kind of something that happens there because California is, I hope you all get to go someday because it's nice. It's a nice place. And, you know, he was 7.5 years older than me. So I always used to tell him, I said, you know, you were 17 and I was 10. And I said, I wish you would have taken me to the prom. And he said, oh my God, Rebecca, that's so horrible. You were just a child. And I said, I know, but look at what happens now, see? And I would have been a hot date. But, you know, yeah, well, so we were similar because being born in the same place, you know, you get kind of the same thing going. But that's a big jump, 7.5 years. But not enough to be too weird. I mean, we still recognize all the same cultural symbols and everything, you know. But we were different backgrounds, definitely.
So, we, when you say you recognize the same backgrounds and the same thing, when you take a look at this warrior princess, this warrior Tila that he showed everybody, what do you see in this one? What's the cultural things you would see there?
Well, this is what he said. He said, they don't want a female, and they don't want her to be sexy. And that's just against my religion. So they're going to get what they get. And so when I see her, I see a warrior woman, a hot warrior woman. I see somebody that's like in your face, who's not afraid of things. And I liked that whole thing. I liked the fact that he put a woman in there, you know? Made me feel good. Especially in a male action line, you know? It was very weird.
Of course. Do you know where I was when you know that I write my stories too, and I
Yes.
got very much inspirations from the old Pulp Fiction authors, like Robert E. Howard, who
Oh,
did
yeah.
Conan, and H.P. Lovecraft, and all of this.
As Mark
Do you-
as well.
Yeah,
He was a
he
comic book collector. Of course, his mother threw all his comic books out, but he loved EC Comics. I don't know if you're familiar with EC Comics. He liked all the the kind of wacky, you know, kind of dark stuff. Because actually, when he thought of He-Man, I don't know if you know this story or not, but there was a place in Long Beach. It's a beach community where is a port, and the ships come in there. It's a, you know, naval ships and all kinds of ships. So they had a lot of tattoo parlors and all kinds of things, you know, there. And they had a carnival. And I went to that carnival. And even though 7.5 years difference, it was still there when I went. And do you know this story? Okay, so his father takes him on this ride, and it's kind of like one of those scary rides, you know? You get in a thing, and he went around the corner, and a blast of air hit him, and there was this thing in front of him, this thing, and he said, he was a little kid, and he was so frightened by it, and he said it looked like it was wax, like you could kind of see through it a little bit, and he told his father, there's a person in there. And his father said, don't be such a pussy, you know? And he says, no, there's a person in there. So his father, being his father, said, well, you're going to go, and he was scared. He says, you're going to go on again. Of course. So Mark went on again, the opposite of my father, and Mark went on again, and he said he could smell death. He said, I knew there was a person in there, and there was. It turned out there was a carnival that this guy, he was a villain of some sort, and he was probably put to death, and they kept his body, and then they just kept waxing him. They waxed him and waxed him. They put paraffin over him. So he was starting to lose his shape. But so they sold him to different carnivals, you know, because it was so scary looking. And this thing, you'd go in and it dropped down like this. You'd be sitting on this cart and it'd go like this. And it was very scary. And I got to see it. That's how long it was there.
Okay.
And that is Skeletor.
Okay. Now I have to ask, who in your mind is Skeletor? When
My
he asked
son.
you.
My naughty son. Skeletor is... I feel sorry for Skeletor.
You do?
I do, because I think he's misunderstood. He's you know, he's just doing he's like Scorpion. He has to sting. He's doing what he needs to do. And I don't know how he came up with it, but it was from the guy. His name was McPhee, I think, the guy that was killed. And I looked him up, and he was like some kind of old Western bad guy, you know?
Okay.
So he's Skeletor. He's famous, and he doesn't even know it.
So, and then afterwards, of course, we also ask if Skeletor to you is this misunderstood guy who might deserve more pity than everything else. Who is He-Man in that case? When we ask
He-Man,
you?
He-Man is Mark, but not in this way. It's the way that He-Man has a conscience about behavior, and he's a winner, but he's not brutal. But He-Man is like the epitome of honor. That's what he is. And of course, there always has to be a nemesis to make the hero more important. If you don't have a good villain, you don't have a good hero, because it has to be something worth fighting against. And so it was like as bad as he could think of.
And when Mark was starting to design He-Man, and he came up with the design of Skeletor and everything, did he come up with the stories too?
Yes.
And, did he learn to write, or did he just invent it by himself because it feels?
Honest to
that way?
goodness, sometimes I would go in his office and there'd be a blank piece of paper. Ooh, there'd be a blank piece of paper, just a blank piece of paper and a pencil. And then you go like this. He did this, and it would grow, and it would grow, and you'd go, where does that come from? I'm married to this person. They're really weird, But it would grow and grow and grow. And the imagination went on and on and on. And my favorite part about Mark's work, to be honest with you, is, like even the sword that you guys like that he did, the sword was, this is not the sword, but you know what I mean. Just designing the sword was so easy for him. It's like he knew where he was going to do it. Do you remember they had that split sword thing at first? Yeah, but he knew, he was so in tune with this that, well, I have to tell you though, at first, because he was a packaging guy. He was doing packaging for Barbie. We had a studio, and then they hired they didn't like husband and wives working together. So they hired him, and he was doing Barbie packaging. And then he was doing this just for fun because he was finished, because the people in-house, they don't work very hard. They're used to taking coffee breaks and all that stuff. And a freelancer comes in and he's like, trying to prove his worth. So he's really drawing up stuff. So he was doing this. And people started noticing it, and they started looking at it. Some people would come in and take pictures of it because he wanted to go to R&D, which is research and design. Research and development, but they wouldn't let him. No, because the packaging guy wanted him there. So he wanted to go to R&D really, really bad, but they wouldn't. And so how was he going to do R&D, which is research and design? How was he going to do that when he's a packaging guy? So he did it all on his off time. And he hung the drawings like this. And the president of Mattel was walking by his cubicle. At that time, they didn't have the new building. They had cubicles. And the president was walking by and looked in and said, "What is this?" So he started explaining, things like, this guy's, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I want that. I want that really bad. So, of course, before that, everyone was going, God, that guy's weird. That's weird stuff. They didn't get into the program. But once the president and they started doing the stuff, it was like everybody wanted to be a part of it then.
Okay. We have now talked about very many facets of Mark Taylor, and we know now that he's a very talented, a very humble guy, that he's very friendly, but that he can be very stern on his.
Oh yeah,
point.
If he made the face, and this was the face, the biting of the cheek, you better run.
So, what do you think is this all? Okay, maybe a trick question.
All right.
But would you say that his personality inspired a lot of his work, or that maybe his work inspired a lot of his personality
No.
on him too?
It was the other way around. It was the work. The work inspired. He was inspired. He was separate from this. he really wasn't this. This was all in here, but in his life, he was just like a regular guy, a regular husband, kind of. Not that regular, but you know, I mean, but he was no. This was because he went on to do Turtles after this. I mean, come on, because they wouldn't let him go to research and design. Now here they're doing his products, right? But they don't want to make him a designer. So Playmates approached him and said, we have this comic book called The Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we need somebody to design what they look like and who their nemesis are and their friends and all that. And so he said, oh yeah, okay. So and they said, and into the design department. So he went back to Mattel and he said, bye. And they said, oh no, we have great plans for you. And he said, well, I have great plans for me too, and it doesn't involve you. So he went to Playmates and he developed the Turtles. Okay, so Ted and I follow him everywhere. Ted and I get freelance off of, everybody. So he went to there and he did the Turtles, and then they wanted him back, real bad. And so I said, do you want to go back to Mattel? And he went, well, Mattel is fun. Mattel in those days was fun because, like I say, I was freelance there, and they had all kinds of weird races, and it was a lot of extracurricular activity. And they were really, it was like, actually Mattel was like being in college because all the people that worked there were talented, and you learned from them just watching their stuff, walking into their office and seeing what they did, And so he really was glad to go to Playmates and do the Turtles. But I have to tell you, the first time he came home, as a wife, it's a whole different thing. As a design partner, we were different. But as a wife, it's different. But I never wanted to be that kind of wife, because we don't have kids, so it's not like you have to keep your job. So when he went to Playmates and he did Turtles and it was successful, they wanted him back. And I said, only go back if they make you a vice president. And he went, okay, why not? So he said, can I be, I won't go back unless I, do that for me. And so the very first week they came into his, and he did do it. And the very first week they came in and took out his drawing desk. And they said, senior vice presidents don't draw. And they took out his drawing desk, and he was really disappointed, because that was his life. And so I said, draw at home. Draw at home, get the paycheck. That's what I said. So then he went back as the senior vice president, and he redid Hot Wheels, and then he also did that second burst of He-Man. I'm sure you guys know about it, right? He-Man was there, and then he left, and then they started doing a little weird stuff that he didn't like. But when he went back, then he took the whole thing and he developed it to where you guys like it, And so it worked for him. The whole thing worked for him. And for you, I guess. For us.
I remember 2013. Who was there 2013 at Grayskull convention? Few of them, yes. And I think we had the last very big cosplay contest.
That was great.
You remember it?
I do.
And we had this very awesome picture where all these cosplayers were on stage, and Mark was sitting in the middle like a father, and
it was really nice.
And somebody asked him, I think it might be me. Somebody asked him, so what is your favorite?
Yes.
And he was like, you know what? I'm not a coward. If I could choose one, I would have told you right now.
He did, though.
Yes. At this moment, he appeared like a very honest person.
Very honest.
But very honest, and not maybe, no, it's not blunt, but direct.
He was
very direct.
He didn't like a lot of, he was direct. And that's what I liked about him. Because before I met him, I was me, but not really me. And then when I met him, I went, oh, okay. If I go with this guy, I'll really live my real life. And it happened that way. He was very blunt about things, but never cruel. Never cruel. And one interview, and I don't know who was there, but one of the movies, that they did, the interview things, they petted him. They got him all hyped up. You remember that one?
I think I know what you mean.
I think that's
yes.
the one that you were mentioning. They got him all hyped up, and he was like different. He was different that day, and it was more like, bullshit. I did that.
Yeah,
and that was real unusual.
Yeah, now I mean something different. I know what you mean. There was this when they always started pushing this question and could there have been another one until he had to say like this, I don't know.
But
I think you really see that he's get like pushed in a corner to answer a question he does not want to answer.
But he never was trapped. He always escaped. He was good. He was very intelligent, really. I mean, you know what? It's hard for me to talk about him because what am I going to say? Okay, let me tell you some bad things about him first. Because he was a great guy to be with. It was really fun. But yes, he always told you the truth, and he told it to you so it didn't hurt. He told it to you like with you believed him because there was no judgment in his words. They were all just, well, maybe this would work better, or maybe you should with my work even. When I did the labels for the castle, he said to me, will you do the labels for the castle? And I said, okay. I was doing other labels for Preschool and Barbie and all that. And so I said, how do you want them? And he said, I want them to look like no other labels. I want them to be washy and bright and kind of like, well, the castle labels. And I said, and see, people weren't on the bandwagon yet. They were still kind of fighting it. And I said, Mark, are they going to like this? And he said, who's they? They is me. And I like it. And so it went through because nobody really cared. And it went through. You didn't see labels like that before. They were all flat graphic colors, little airbrush maybe, but not washy like that because it's scary to have something like that printed. You never know how it's really going to come out. But everything just kind of clicked really well. But, the main thing was you guys, because you guys just loved the toys. You loved them. You didn't care. You wanted them. You wanted to steal them. You loved them, And he felt so good about that. He really did. We were in Toys R Us one time, and a little kid got down on the floor and was crying and doing like this because his mother wouldn't buy him the 2-pack. It came out in a 2-pack first, He-Man and Skeletor. And he says, I hate to say this, but I really like that.
We will not tell everybody.
No, we won't. That's our secret.
It's our secret. Yes. Ours and the world. Yes.
No, just Germany.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Of course.
Of course. So, when you say He-Man was, thank you. When you say He-Man was Mark, and they are somehow similar.
I mean, he wasn't muscly and all that. And sometimes people would meet him and they'd go, oh, because they'd expect him to look like this, Sorry.
Yep. When Mark would see what happened to He-Man, and I do not mean in a negative way, I just see that his design of a barbaric warrior changed.
It did. When he left, it changed.
When they did this Prince Adam thing, and
he did Prince Adam. That was the last thing he did. And I said, a pink vest, really? And he goes, yeah, why not?
Because they're gonna leave anyway.
Because I'm going to Turtleville,
No, seriously, when there's this huge debate in the fandom, and maybe we tonight can
Solve
sort
it?
it all out. There's when you say there's the original, the good, the perfect He-Man, is that one with the axe and
Yeah.
and going through a wasteland and
Yes.
smashing monsters?
Yes, it is.
Or it is the prince who does
No.
who never hurts people and throws them in the mud. What
I-
would Mark Taylor say?
Mark Taylor was kind of he played football, and he had a brother. So it was like, but he did Prince Adam as kind of like a goodbye present to Mattel. But here's the interesting part, because I taught at a college, a design college, and I was the assistant chair at a toy design college. It's called Otis. And they would ask me. I would bring him in, and he would show his things, and it's after the fact. And there's a certain generation that thinks He-Man is stupid. I know, they're so dumb, but but no, it was all about He-Man was not Orko for Mark. Orko is the I hate to say it because I know a lot of you like him, but he was the antithesis for Mark of He-Man. Because when Mark did He-Man, it was slightly dark. And it was meant to be kind of dark. And then all of a sudden it got real comical. Well, here's why I tell you about the teaching thing that I did. I would hire some of the guys that worked for him at Mattel. And they would tell me, oh my God, we're lost. We don't even know what to do. We're putting snouts on things and making bee guys and all that, and the kids loved it, and all you guys probably loved the hell out of it, and it's really good. But that was not Mark's vision. Mark's vision was not ever silly. Mark's vision was always kind of dark, kind of more like Batman, that kind of dark. So I would say punching, and I would say that He-Man has to be pushed really far before he gets violent.
Okay.
But he can do it. And I could be full of shit. You know that. I'm just going from what I know because I slept with a guy.
Thank you. Round of applause, please.
Thank you. And it was good. And it was really good.
Oh, jetzt wissen wir auch das. Okay. Now we know
I have
that.
no governor. I'm sorry. I'm at the age now, I'm 75, where I don't give a shit about a lot of things. And I'll just tell you the truth.
And we praise you for this. Now, okay, looking at the watch, I think we have got some time for a few questions from the audience. I hope that I have a lot of questions that I can't ask you here, but maybe they do. But maybe to round it all up, if we have to know 3 things about Mark Taylor,
yes,
what would this be?
That he was a really good human. He was an excellent human. He was kind to everybody. I mean, my father, when he met Mark, it was like it was his best friend. They were best friends. So for me, it's all really beautiful. And that's the kind of person he is. I always feared that when when he'd pass away, I always feared that it was going to be by helping somebody, and then something bad happened, and it didn't go that way. He was in my arms, and so I was always grateful for that, because he would help anybody. People on the street, he'd help everyone. That's the kind of person he was. What else? Thanks.
So we have 3 things. Part 1, he was a beautiful, wonderful person. What's the second thing people should know about Mark?
I can't tell you about that part. Sorry. No. The second thing is that he was really knowledgeable about a lot of things. He worked for the Naval Undersea Warfare Center before that. So he was doing big boy toys. And then he went to kid toys, And he had a lot of knowledge about weaponry and history. So when it came time to do Torak, Hero of Prehistory, who is He-Man. You know that, right? It was just like channeling to me. I watched him, and it looked like just channeling, you know? Did I
So-
answer the question?
Yes,
Okay.
of course. And what is the third fact people have to know about Mark Taylor?
Oh, you really stumped me on that one. Maybe somebody can ask me a question instead.
So we just have to know that he was a wonderful person,
He
a
was.
talented person,
Yeah.
and a
Oh, and
knowledgeable
and
person.
you know what? He loved people, and he loved his fans. And when I started printing these things up, I said, "Do you think I can print these things up?" And he goes, "Yes, but you do not charge them very much." He said, "Charge them only for the printing and the paper, and just a little bit more for postage and stuff," because he was a fan lover. He didn't like that whole mercenary thing, because this is because all of you know, this isn't just about toys. This isn't just about collecting. This is deeper. This is in your soul. You have this in you. This is like Joseph Campbell said, this is your mission. And all of you that are in this room probably feel that way, or you wouldn't be in this room, right? And he was really knowledgeable about so many things, and I could ask the most stupid questions, girl questions or boy questions, didn't matter. I could ask really stupid questions, and this is with everyone. He would answer you with, he never made you feel dumb. He always brought you with him. He never did, and this and this and this and this. He never did that. He brought you with him. And that was the beautiful part. And I think that's what he did with He-Man. I think he brought you with him. And that's the pretty part for me.
Question time. Anybody wants to know
And you
something?
can ask me anything.
Please
well,
don't.
Yeah, please don't, because I might answer you, because this is pretty
Yeah,
hot.
but please do not answer anything, because she might answer. Yes.
Well, let's imagine that you change roles. That Mark was sitting here and we would ask him, well, what about your wife? How did she inspire you? Or which part was hers in your life?
He was so good to me. He just liked me so much. It was really weird. He just liked me from the start, and he just liked me. So he thought I was smart, and he was always just a gentleman to me, and he would say I was his muse, because that's corny, but it's true. That's what he'd say. I don't know if I really was, but that's what he'd say. Since he passed away 2 years ago, I haven't done any art. I just felt this is like the first time I've really come out, because it's like the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I tell my friends, if I got hit by a bus today, it wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened to me. But losing Mark was the worst thing. So, but I have to do art, because it's part of my DNA, and I have to do it. And so I plan on doing more of it. I'm doing a whole series of octopus for some reason. I don't know why. I'm doing these paintings. But I get freelance once in a while from people. And then I did teach at one of the colleges, not my college, but another college. I did some classes on color and stuff. I can't excise it from myself. It's part of my life, but it's different when you don't have that partner to help you, It's different. But I have Pierre, my handler. So I have a lot of friends still, and then Ted Mayer. You know who Ted Mayer is? He did all the vehicles for Mark, and I'm going to tell you why he did the vehicles. Mark was new at Mattel when he was starting to work on this stuff. And Ted, they put him next door to Mark in the cubicle. And he came home and he goes, "There's this English dude, and he's next door to me, and I like him." And they've been friends for 50 years. I mean, he was due to come this time, but he had a pacemaker put in, but he's great. He's fine. But I said, I saw one of his vehicles, and I don't know if you've seen it. I'm telling something here. Sorry, Mark. But do you know the vehicle that has it's like turned things. It's like a battle ram, I think, the beginning of one. And it looks like something's been lathed and it goes like this. And I went, oh my God, that is so horrible. And so he says, well, you know, the guy next to me, the new guy, Ted, he says, he comes from the auto industry. So he says, I'll have him work on, if I'll ask my boss if he can work on the vehicles. Oh, yeah. So you got battle ram. You got all really nice stuff from him. I did the labels for those too. Because we're like we're like a team. We in toy business, somebody hires you and then you bring a friend, and then somebody you all know each. It's incentive. It's not good, and you go you go here, and then I went here, and then even Ted worked for me at the college, and then I had Mark teach some classes. So it's like we're all like connected for life. And so I said, that would be a good thing if you had somebody else do it. And so he was a vehicle guy, And so that's when you got the real sleek stuff, the pointy, sleek stuff. But this one, if you ever see it, it looks like early American furniture. And he goes, thanks, Reb. I go, I want to be honest with you. But then Ted came around and they became fast friends, and we've been friends for 50 years. And he's great. Ted's great. Isn't he, Pierre?
Don't spoil anything. We have to talk about Ted tomorrow more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You can talk. You can sing his praise tomorrow.
Okay, it was
and
jerk.
I think when I remember you brought a sort of presentation with you.
I did.
Yes.
He when he found out he had to have the heart surgery, he said, "You're going," and I went, oh, "Okay." And he said, and so he gave me the presentation. What he had it on a stick. I don't know. Can I tell this part? He puts it on a stick and he says, "You and my son look at it." So we took a look in his office and we watched the film, the slide presentation, and his son looked at me and said, "You got to help him, Reb." So we just switched a couple things around, but you'll like it. It's real interesting. It's about Ted, and a really very talented man. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I'm sorry.
So
I was going on.
We'll see each other tomorrow, and then
Yes.
we'll talk about Ted and
Okay.
watch the presentation you fixed. And
Yeah, I just fixed the graphic part because it was like, ooh.
Some more questions.
Yeah, I got some. One. When Mattel did He-Man again at the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you noticed.
Yes, because he came in because they're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, they approached.
Yeah, they approached Mark.
What
Uh-huh.
did you think of all of that, and what was his?
You know,
Did he attribute to that?
Mark just liked the idea of designing the toys. He didn't want to get into all that crap, with the who and all that, and and he didn't want to get into that. He really cared about the toys. He cared about the guys that liked the toys because Mark remembered that he was a kid. And a lot of the marketing people at Mattel, they must have forgotten that they were ever children. And they did things, of course, for monetary reasons, and that's understandable. But as I was teaching at the school and I hired some of the people that worked for Mark, they'd go, He-Man is just like going crazy. It's like weird. It's like we need him back. And so, he went back and it was all just, it was never about personalities with him. It was always just about the stuff. But I'll tell you something. When he came to Möchtest, when he came in 2013, I saw him, and you guys were so nice. And it was the first con he ever went to, and I knew that he felt like it was all completely worth it. And that was really a good feeling.
I think I can't think of any better words to wrap it up. Do you?
No. Except he appreciated your fandom very much. He loved that you stole his toys. He loved that you loved them. He felt that in a way, that you would become stronger people with this. I was in school one day and this man came down and he said, "Is Mark Taylor here?" I was in the lobby. "Is Mark Taylor here?" And oh, he was scary looking. He had tattoos all over his neck, I mean, he's one of those, a skinhead kind of the guy. And he says, "I want to talk to Mark Taylor." So I got kind of panicky. And when Mark came out of the elevator, I went, "There's Mark." He went up to Mark, put his arms around Mark, and cried and cried and cried. And he said, "My father was abusive to me, and I had He-Man. And I used to say, I've got the power, and this isn't going to break me." And I swear, I think Mark started crying. It affected him so much. And so those are my parting words.
That were better words than mine. That were much better words than mine.
No, they weren't. They were
Yes, of
equally
course.
as good.
Come on. You're too humble.
No.
Yes.
Ask Pierre.
Is she too humble?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Shut up. So- Oh, I think we've learned a lot of Mark, a lot of facets that we didn't know until today. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
glad you
you
did.
for sharing all of this. I think you might be around for a little bit more. So
know.
if anybody has some questions that
You can ask me
that you
anytime.
cannot stream on internet, maybe
Yes, but I answer
just
everybody's
approach
question.
her. She's happy
do.
to help. I want to close up with the words you get started with that you said. These that Mark said these should belong to the fans.
That's right. That's how he
And-
felt. And that's
Yes.
exactly how he
And
felt.
we had a talk, and if you remember, we said a few hours ago, well, not we, I did, that we're gonna have a quiz tomorrow, and we said that everybody who takes part of it, and no matter how good he or she is, can take one of these prints that we're gonna lay out as his or her personal prize home. And
He would. That's what he would have wanted. He would have wanted me to do that
yes.
because he was all about you guys, really, honestly.
So I look at the watch. I think the meals might be ready in a few minutes. I think we all should get a bite by now. I know I do. Not now, not here. We see each other again at 8:30 when it's time to beat this guy up, Mr. James Etok. Yes. Yeah.
And please approach me at any time and ask me anything. And if I have the answer, I'll give it to you. I try to write back to all of you when you write to me because it makes me feel really good.
See you later, guys.